This episode is brought to you by Antennas Direct, makers of the toughest antennas in the universe. Hi, and welcome to the Man Cave Cinema. This is John Zanettos with Bedhead on a Sunday morning. And my coffee. And this is episode, what are we at? 72. And today we're going to be talking about the real console war. Okay? But before I go there, I'd just like to remind everybody that, number one, our new website is coming along very, very nicely. Our webmaster, Brian, has been working his little buns off, getting it all set up. The cool thing about it, the difference this time is that we are going to have a hub that revolves around everything man cave, she cave, anything that you want to buy for your man cave, set up your man cave. If you want to do a home theater, we'll be directing you to local and international businesses that can supply you with speakers, receivers. If you're a comic book fan, local comic book places where you can pick up stuff, art for your home theater or your she cave, stuff like that. We'll be supplying all that information in one central location, so you don't have to go searching all over the internet. The Man Cave Cinema will have it, and we'll still have these videos, and we'll still have our articles that we'll be writing, and we'll be having a lot more stuff, not just video games, not just home theater, just a ton of stuff that we're going to be talking about. So we're really excited about that. And then second of all, don't forget the Man Cave Cinema store. Right now we are still adding Atari, Intellivision, ColecoVision, all retro gaming stuff for sale that we're finding at thrift stores or wherever, and we're selling it to you. I'm also collecting from that lot too, so whatever that I don't, not necessarily I don't want, but I think that people would want, I put it on my store, and everything's at reasonable prices. And also our shipping, we have flat rate shipping, so you don't have to pay the stupid enormous amount that the post office and especially the couriers make you pay. So sometimes I have to pay a little bit extra for the shipping that's over the flat rate, but that's okay. I want to send the stuff that I have to nice homes where people will appreciate it and collect it. So anyways, the real console war. Okay, here we go. And I know a lot of Nintendo people are not going to be too happy about this, but people think the original console war was between Nintendo and Sega in sort of the mid to late 80s. That's not true. Yes, it was a big console war, but the original console war was back in the late 70s between Atari and Intellivision. Forget about ColecoVision, that came later. Okay, that came in the early 80s. But in the early 70s, I remember watching TV back then when there was no internet and all your information you mostly got from TV was the back and forth commercials. The back and forth commercials between Atari, how they're bragging about how many games they have for their console, versus Intellivision bragging about they have better graphics than Atari. They never mentioned that they have more games, but that was the constant back and forth. Now, Atari sort of relied on commercials where the family gets together around the TV, and instead of watching TV, you're participating with the TV. But Intellivision hired a famous actor, and I can't remember his name right now. Very drab, very boring guy, if I remember. But he would brag about how good the graphics were on Intellivision. And then they would compare, this is what a guy looks like on Intellivision. See, he's got legs. Bloop, 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 bloop. And here's the Atari version. And they would show like the very early copies of Atari cartridges where it was just blobs moving around. Okay? So that's not really fair, but that's what the console war was. And I remember at school, again, no internet, where you had to face with people and say, Atari's better, no, Intellivision's better, no, whatever. And sometimes fistfights would break out, which was great. It's not like I condone violence, but anyways. So it was interesting to see back then how it worked and how everything was. But, okay, now we fast forward to 2016, and you take a look at the market for all this retro gaming. And you know what, my friends? Atari destroyed the console war back then because they are in still high demand the games to this day, okay, compared to Intellivision. I'm selling both, and the majority of people are on the portion of the Atari section of the store. I mean, almost 90% of people are looking at Atari stuff. They're not looking at Intellivision stuff. They're hardly looking at the ColecoVision stuff. I mean, yes, there are collectors for that stuff. And yes, trust me, I'm not Intellivision and ColecoVision collectors. Please, by all means. I mean, if you love your console, you love your console. I think the consoles are great too. I have no bias. Well, I have a little bit of a bias towards Atari, but overall, a video game is a video game. If it plays well, if it looks well, and it has the playability, Bob's your uncle. So, but the thing is, when you look at those type of numbers now, Atari destroyed everybody else, because still to this day, from 1977 when Atari first put out the video, the video computer system, which then changed to the 2600, but essentially the 2600, is still to 2016 just as popular. I mean, people are picking up not just one or two consoles, like a ton of them, and they're collecting all the games, and there's so many rares and so many different versions of the games and so many different, because of the industry was so new and it was always moving around and so many players were coming in and what have you, that there's different versions of different games and people want to collect. You don't get that with Intellivision. You don't get that with ColecoVision. It just has, Atari has this mystique that has survived over the decades, and that's it. I mean, there's nothing more. Atari won that console war hands down. I mean, you can go back and look at, you can sort of jump a few years forward after Atari and the supposedly crash of the video game industry, which I don't think is correct. I think it wasn't a crash, it was just a correction in the market. That Nintendo won this Sega. They put Sega under, they stopped making consoles and they just decided to just make games and stick to their Sonic brand name. So that's pretty obvious, okay? And then the modern Xbox, PS4, this is all bullshit anyways. They're both computers with hard drives and everything in them. They're both running the same, more or less, APIs now. They're not indistinguishable anymore. Back then they were distinguishable and there were differences. So anyways, that's all I wanted to say. Atari has won the original console war, and the original console war started back in the late 70s. I'm John Zanettos. This is episode, I gotta check again, 72 of the Man Cave Cinema Rant. We'll talk to you later. I gotta go take a shower now.